So I think we should get started. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I hope you are enjoying the Drupal Console so far. So now we're going to talk about Symfony and Drupal and why it makes sense to learn Symfony before you jump into Drupal. And even if you are already working with Drupal, why it will be beneficial for you to learn Symfony, just to improve as a Drupal developer. So before we get started, I will want to know who here has worked with Drupal or is working with Drupal currently. Okay, so most of you. Great. And who here has worked with Symfony? Okay, a couple, like 20% maybe. But also I will want to know who here is a front-end developer. Yay, like half page. That's great. I was worried that front-end developers won't be interested in this talk, so I'm glad. So who here is a back-end developer? The other half? Great. So it's a very diverse audience. I like that. So before we jump into the 8 reasons why, I will give a brief introduction about me, but also about what is Symfony and what is Symfony components. So who am I? I am ybom Carrillo. I am the proud mom of 2 dogs. Right here, there is Canelo. He's a beautiful mix of we don't know what, but he's beautiful. And that's my Twitter handle, in case you wanted to reach out. Also, if you hear this talk and you disagree with something, please let me know. I will love to know, or also if you agree with it. So I know I mentioned 2 dogs, and when you mention a dog, you have to show the picture. So that's Mocha right here. And we all came from Mexico along with my husband. And there is where my journey as a software engineer started. So first, I was an operating systems engineer. I was using C and Java, like very different from Drupal, I know. But then I moved to another company as a data engineer. There I was using Scala, Java, Ruby, and well, things that are more like in the real world. And then, because of those skills, I was brought here to Pixel. And because to support data projects, but also to be involved in web development projects. Some of them were with PHP and Laravel. Laravel is a very fun framework to work with. I really enjoy it. But then I was moved to Drupal, and and yeah, I was like, what is this? I was so confused. I couldn't like read and follow like how is this working? Where is it wired? I want to see the code like from their route to the controller, and for me it was very confusing. But then I had the opportunity to work with Symfony, and that is when all the pieces start coming together. And it just made more sense to me that this is where I should have started, just to know the basis and then move to Drupal. And that's what I want to talk about. It's basically my experience. Is highly opinionated. You can disagree, but I'm convinced that this is the way to go. So let's see. What is Symfony? Symfony is a PHP framework. That means that you can build web applications with PHP. So it uses PHP. It's an MVC. It's a full stack framework. You can build any web application that you need, or website, or anything that is related with internet. Why? Because it's very flexible. It doesn't give you an implementation of anything. It just gives you the backbone so you can build whatever you need. So it is widely used to build application that has very complex and highly customized requirements. So that's a Symfony framework. But what about Symfony components? Symfony components are PHP libraries. They are decoupled and reusable. That's why they are used in the Symfony framework, but they are also used in Drupal They started to be used in Drupal since the version 8. It is very convenient to use it for refactoring, that's why they are used, but also they are using other frameworks like API Platform, Laravel, Silex, Magento. There are a lot of PHP frameworks that are using Symfony components. So that's the name that they gave to those set of libraries, but at the end of the day, it's just libraries, it's code that you can use. So keep that in mind, that's what we're going to be calling Symfony components, and there's another thing that is called the Symfony framework. The Symfony framework is a whole thing, a whole environment that has the Symfony components, but it also has another set of tools with it, like the databases and or other components. It's just it's a framework that has those Symfony components in it. And just as it is happening in Symfony, it will happen the same in other frameworks, such as Drupal. It's just a part of that framework. So it's very important that you know the difference between what it is, the Symfony framework and the Symfony components. What Drupal is using is the Symfony components. And well, with that, I will start giving you the 8 reasons why I think you should learn Symfony before you learn Drupal. The first one is to build a more solid base for web development. And why is that? I've seen that many people jump into Drupal without knowing these bases. And there's no judgment here. It's okay. We are all here to learn. But you have to know that there are like a background that will give you more resources, and it will be just easier for you if you know these concepts. Some of them, for example, are what is a REST API, how to build it, what is backend, what is frontend. I remember when I started using Drupal and people started mentioning the backend, and I was surprised, like, what are you talking about? That was a user interface, because they were talking about the admin toolbar, and for me it was like, what? But it was another, I came from another background, so for me it was different. But if you learn a web framework different from Drupal, you are going to know these concepts. What is HTTP? And not only that, okay, it's a protocol for internet, but also to know the methods, get, post, update, delete, and that comes along also with the REST API. Also, what is a server-client application? What runs on the server side and what runs on the client side? So those are just concepts that are like the basis for all web developers. So you will learn this if you start working with Symfony. You will learn this with other frameworks as well, but in Symfony, it uses the same core, the same basis as Drupal. It makes sense to learn Symfony. But you're not only going to learn these basic concepts, you also will know more about what happens behind the scenes, what happens in the Drupal core. Most of the time when we are working with Drupal, we are worried about customizing our website, but we think in Drupal core as just a black box that is there that we don't need to touch, and we don't want to touch it. Yeah, we don't want to hack it. But it will be also convenient to know, to be familiar with what is going on there. So if you are starting a project with Symfony, you will become more familiar with the core, and you will understand more the core in Drupal as well. Just to know how things are wired, and if you want to customize it, it will be just easier for you where to put that custom code. Well, this is what we will be knowing as the Symfony core. We have these 5 points here: HTTP foundation, HTTP kernel, routing, event dispatcher, dependency injection. And just as they are part of the Symfony core, they are part of the Drupal core as well. So it will make sense to become familiar with it and just to know what that is. And those are not only concepts that you will learn, those are Symfony components. And as I said, those are libraries that give you code to work with. And now that I'm mentioning Symfony components, that's the third point. We already talked about why there are, but why we need to learn it in Symfony instead of learn those components on Drupal. So the reason is just you are going to become more familiar with those Symfony components. You are going to learn those resources just in case you need to solve a problem. You will just know, okay, I have this component here that I can use because I learned it in Symfony. And it's just easier to learn in Symfony because the only thing that you'll have there is your code, is your application. You don't have all those layers that Drupal has. Because Drupal is an already implemented web application that you are going to customize, but there are a lot of code in it. When you install Symfony, you won't have anything, like nothing. If you go to you have a fresh installation of Symfony and you go to the browser, you won't see anything. So all the things that you'll have there are going to be your implementation. So it's just going to be easier to implement there your code using Symfony components. And you will learn that in Drupal we have several Symfony components that they are being used in the Drupal core and as well in the modules that come with a fresh installation. And you will know what they are. And so the components that I have highlighted here in red, I don't think you can use the other ones, but those are the ones that are used in Drupal, and you can use it as well in your custom code. But the others, you can also download them and install it and use them. It's going to be just easier to learn them in Symfony than in Drupal, but they are there for you. And they are just resources for you to solve problems. And well, I have an asterisk here in the one that says console, because Drupal is not using Symfony Console as you will see it in the pure state. You are going to see an application that is called Drush or Drupal Console. So those are implementing Symfony Console in it, and that's what you are going to use in Drupal. That's why I have like an asterisk. It's like a special case. And well, that's the fourth reason why I think you should learn Symfony before jumping to Drupal, the Symfony Console. So in Symfony, you can learn how to use it, and you will use that as a solid base to then learn how to use Drupal, Console, and Drush, but also how to implement your own commands. And why would you want to do that? Well, you can build your own command line tools just to solve some admin tasks. So we always have those tasks that we are doing it a lot of times, and you don't have to repeat them. You can build your own commands, and that's where you are going to be using Symfony Console. So you can use it for cron jobs, creating user accounts, moving files, dumping a database, or other tasks that you may need. So it's just another resource that you will gain by learning how to do a command line tool. So I know that you could implement also a bash script, but if you need a script that is going to interact with your application, it just makes more sense to use Symfony Console in the case of Symfony, or Drupal Console, or Drush in the case of Drupal. And here I have a link of a tutorial. This tutorial is to build command line application using Symfony Console. This is just a standalone application because that's something that where you can use your Symfony components. You can use them within a framework, or you can use them in your standalone applications. Since they are decoupled and reusable, you can use them everywhere where you are using PHP. And well, I follow along this tutorial and I built my own command line application. It's a very simple one, and I'm going to show you the output here. It's not much, but what I want to tell you here is that this output looks very similar of the output that you will see with Drupal Console or even Drush. So right here, we're going to see, well, I'm not sending any command, just the application that I call console. And the first thing that we see is the name of my application. In this case, console app, because I don't have imagination for a name, so I just put it there. And the usage, some options, and available commands. If you see the first command, it says grid, and that's the only thing that I implemented. The rest of it is just what I will have with the Symfony Console applications. So if I see the output of Drupal Console, it will be fairly similar. We'll have the name, we have the usage, we have options, and available commands. Obviously, here we are going to see more options and more commands. That's why this is because this is an application or a tool that somebody, the team, implemented using Symfony Console. So it's the same like layout, but with commands that are going to be useful for Drupal. And you can build your own Drupal commands as well. It's just easier to start like simple with Symfony rather than start with Drupal Console. And then we're going to talk about services. This is the 5th point why I think you should learn Symfony before learning Drupal. Services are the most fundamental part of Symfony. This is because this is where all the work gets done. They are the guys that are going to do job for you. So what are services? At the end of the day, they are just objects that are already instantiated for you and that you can use it and they are going to do something for you. For example, if you want to make a query to the database, you don't want to be implemented a database connection every time you want to do that. And instead of that, you are going to call the database service and it will make a query for you. So it's just easier to do it in Symfony because in Drupal, we need to know where we have access to the service container. The service container is another object that contains all the services. So it's like a pool of objects. And that pool is called service container, and those objects are the services. So in Drupal, for instance, we will have access to the service container if we are going to do custom controllers, blocks, or commands. But because of that, it can get a little trickier, so it's just easier to learn it in Symfony. So these are examples of Symfony services that we will have. For example, the router service will generate URLs for us. The Twig service will render a template. The logger service will write and store logs. The mailer will send mails. And with this, we can now understand that we will have a job done. That's what the services do, is just make a job for us. And if we want to know which services we have, we can run these commands. In Symfony, we are going to execute console debug auto wiring, and in Drupal, you are going to run Drupal debug container. So these commands are going to tell you all the services that you have. And here I'm going to show you the list. This is in Symfony. The list is really long. You're going to see there are a lot of services out there. And the more Symfony components or libraries or bundles that you install, the more services you will have. So in the French installation, you will have all these lists, but every time you download something, you will have just more services for you. So I really encourage you to go and check this list and see which services you have, just in case one of them will solve the problem that you have. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or rewrite code that is already here. And also, those services, one benefit that they have is that you have a community behind them, and they are already tested for you, so you know that they are going to work. And if you see one service that you think it will work, that that's the one for you, but you're not sure, just Google them and you will find documentation, because sometimes the description here is not very straightforward and can be confusing. Okay. The 6th point reason why I think you should learn Symfony before learning Drupal is the event dispatcher. The event dispatcher is the responsible of thinking that Drupal is black magic. That's black magic for me. Yeah, because sometimes some process just get dispatched or is executed and we don't know why. And it's just, I remember for me it was very frustrating that, for like, why am I supposed to know that that was going to happen, or in which order? Like, I don't know the processes that are happening and where am I supposed to put my code. And so learning the event dispatcher giving me like more idea of how those things were happening. The event dispatcher at the end of the day is, it's like a listener that is waiting for an event to happen, and then it will trigger another action. So it has 3 main parts: the dispatcher, the listener, and the event. Those 3 parts are objects that you are going to implement, but of course you are going to extend from the event dispatcher. Remember that this is a Symfony component, but you have to implement the dispatcher, meaning, well, that's where you are going to register your listener and the event. The listener is like where it needs to be listening, and the event is the thing that you are waiting. So let's say you are waiting for a user to sign in and see their user profile, and when they do a change in the user profile, you want to send an email. That's the event that's going to be dispatched. The listener will be in the user profile, and the event is going to be whenever the user press save. So that's just a rough example, but you can implement your own event dispatcher when you need. But also, I'm putting this here in this presentation not only because I want you to implement event dispatcher, that's not most of the point, but just to understand and to know that it exists, so you know more and become more familiar with how Symfony and Drupal works. And the 7th point is Symfony Routing. Symfony Routing is also important to know, just to know how things are wired behind. And if you understand the way that Symfony gets its routing, you are going to understand Drupal 8. So there are several ways to do routing. In Drupal, we are going to use YAML configuration in our custom modules, but there are other ways to do routing. As you become more familiar with it, you are going to understand more how it works on Drupal. And also, I have this like very high level diagram of explaining how the workflow works. It's very rough, I know, but I think it will give us a very good idea. So it will start from the request. This is where the end user is, and it's going to make a request in the browser. It can be /, it can be /contact, and /blog. When that happens, it will arrive to our application, and the first point of entry is our front controller. This is how this is going to be called. This is our index.php, and we have seen it. And what is going to be happen is, this is where the event dispatcher is working, by the way, because this is the core of Symfony. So every time a request arrives, it's going to just call the Symfony kernel, and the Symfony kernel is going to convert that request to a PHP object. With a PHP object, the rest of the application will know how to do, will know how to handle it. The Symfony kernel doesn't know which controller to call, So it's going to call the routing, and the routing is going to, from the route, is going to give us which is the controller that is going to handle that request, as that is going to do the job. It's going to go back to the Symfony kernel, and the Symfony kernel is the one that is going to call the controller, and the controller is going to run all the business logic that we want, and is going to produce HTML or a JSON or whatever format we want for our response. Once we have our response, it will go back all the way back to our user. And last, we have Twig. Twig is a very powerful tool. I know it's not very loved because right now we have more modern front-end frameworks. We have React, we have Vue, we have Angular, but it's very powerful, and it's already in our framework. It's already within Symfony, and it's within Drupal. So it's very beneficial for us to learn, even if we are back-end developers, just to build a prototype or to explain things. It will be very useful to learn, and it's just easier to learn it within Symfony rather than learn in Drupal. We have all the Drupalisms that we need to learn about Twig. So Twig is a very simple tool that it's just easier in Symfony. You just learn it. No, it's just because first I want to tell you what Twig is. It's a modern template engine for PHP. PHP at the beginning was a template engine, just to run some logic and then renders HTML. But then it didn't evolve like that. Now it is a backend language. So we needed another template engine, and that's why we have Twig now. And it is fast, it is secure, and it is flexible. And well, I want to show you all the things that are within Twig. So it doesn't have much to learn. I know it's not very easy to see, but that's like all the documentation of Twig. We have tags, we have filters, we have functions, and we are not going to use all of them, just some of them. So it will be fast to learn. I mean, even I can do it, so you can do it. I am not a front-end developer. And well, this is the last point that I wanted to talk about. And with that, we finished the 8 reasons why I think you should learn Symfony before jumping to Drupal. So just to recap them, you are going to learn what web development is with their basic concepts, what Drupal core has behind the scenes, what are Symfony components, and just become more familiar with them, how to use the Symfony Console, what services are, what the event dispatcher is, the Symfony routing, and Twig. And well, one thing that I want you to really know is that you can just start your Symfony journey. I know that sometimes it feels like I need to learn so much things, so this is yet another thing that I need to learn, but it's not a waste of time. It is really worth it, and you don't need to be building very complex applications in Symfony just to know everything that we have talked, or even more. Even a simple web application, you will see these concepts. You can go through a Symfony tutorial, and it will tell you all about these things that we have talked about. And it will be very beneficial for you when you are working with Drupal. Even if, well, most of you are already working with Drupal, so it will be beneficial for you and very useful. And well, I hope that not only you are convinced to learn Symfony now, but that you have also learned something in this talk. For example, the Symfony components or what a service is. Well, if you have any question, please, this is the time. Okay, so yeah.
Can you give us an example of some application that's built just in Symfony that's out there?
I don't know. Yeah, like a, well, yeah, because those are frameworks that are using the Symfony components. No, I don't know, like examples of, yeah, I think we will need to go to the page, symfony.com, and maybe there, yeah, but I don't know, sorry. So, Jeff?
Do you think, as a next step after this, it's worth spending any time looking at the code to see how Drupal wraps the Symfony components, what it does to use them, instead of just going ahead and
I don't think I understand the question. So
when Drupal makes call, for example, to Symfony's component to get URLs, there's endpoints in Drupal to do
Yep.
that. But is it worth looking at what's going on behind the scenes, what the Drupal code is doing, and what they're taking advantage of Symfony?
So it will be convenient, but I think it's just more complex to understand it. For me, it's just better to do it. Like if you want to review how a Symfony component works, it's just learn it by itself or in Symfony framework, and then yeah, you can see how Drupal refactored the code to use that Symfony component. But like the first thing to do, I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't recommend that because it can be just a lot of things going on there. The code is sometimes a little messy, sometimes. Yeah. Yep.
So from the beginning, I think you said that it's important to know the difference between a PHP framework and a PHP component, and that Drupal is a PHP component. Is that what you said?
No. Between Symfony framework and Symfony component.
And Drupal is a Symfony component.
Yes, that's right.
So I still didn't understand, I guess, the nuance of that. Like, what does that really mean in terms of like how we use it each thing?
Oh, it's just to know what each thing is. So Drupal is using Symfony components. It's not extending Symfony framework. Or just to know that there are those two things. The Symfony components are libraries that you can use in any PHP code, and Symfony framework is to build web applications. So it's not like you are going to use that in your projects or something. It's just to know it. Just okay. Yep.
Do you have a particular resource that you would recommend for learning Symfony?
Well, first of all, obviously the page, symfony.com, but I found very useful the screencast tutorials. The first course is free. I'm not being paid, but it is very useful. I really like them.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
This may be too big a question, but why did Laravel need to get written on top of Symfony? What does Laravel do that Symfony can't do? Where does it lie in that continuum? Aren't they both MVC frameworks?
Both are MVC frameworks. The difference, as I see it, is that Symfony is more flexible in the sense that it doesn't have much implementations on it, and Laravel, it will give you a lot of tools already implemented for you for authentication. It uses a different database mapping, and I don't remember all the things that it has already implemented, but it's not as much as Drupal. That is so complex, so dedicated for content. Laravel, you can still use it for several purposes, but it has a lot of things that are already implemented. So it's very easy to use, very easy to learn, but you need to see if it matches your requirements, because if it doesn't, it will be very hard to customize it. So that's the difference. It's just like it has more tools on it.
It's opinionated.
Yeah, and with Symfony, you don't have anything. You just have like the backbone to build on it. It's more flexible. So, for example, for microservices, you will want to use Symfony and not Laravel. Another question? Yep.
Feel free to say this is too much in the weeds for this Q&A session, but I was inspired to come here because I was debugging an issue in Drupal 8 and I came across this component called Route Enhancers, which replaced the page delivery callback system from Drupal 7. And I'm still the documentation of these Symfony components in Drupal 8 leaves some to be desired, because I can't tell if I'm trying to study Symfony or study Drupal 8. And so, I guess, one, where can I find better documentation on this? And two, have you ever heard of a Route Enhancer? What does it do?
To be honest, no. I haven't used it, sorry. Yeah, no. No, I don't think I can help with that. One of the things that Symfony advertises is that the Symfony components are very well documented. So if it doesn't help them, then I don't think I can help. Sorry. Yeah. Another question. Is that it? Yep.
Just an answer to your question about a learning resource. Ryan Weaver, who's on the Symfony documentation team, he has Symfony Cast. It used to be called KMP University, and it's now symfonycast.com, and he does a great job. They have other
Oh, yep.
I have an answer to the first question about real-life Symfony application. That was my last company. We hired people to build our application form. That's a university, and we needed a separate thing for the web form that was separate from our Drupal and separate from our everything else. And we said we want PHP, and they came back with this Symfony application. It's the first time I had seen it before. And so it's a relatively simple page with very complex integration into Salesforce in the background. But that was the first I've heard of it, and maybe a good example for a use case.
For Symfony. All right. Thank you. I think that's all the questions. If you have another question like later, please feel free to reach out. That's my Twitter handle again, and that's my email. And any question or suggestion or opinion, please let me know. And well, as you have heard before, we are hiring. And that's the page if you want to check out our positions. And thank you very much.